smile.dog. No, not that one. Smile.dog. One of the most iconic creepypasta images in internet history, probably second only to the Jeff the Killer image. As most of you likely know already, there are two images most commonly associated with the smile.dog character. This demonic looking version, which is the original, and a tamer version of a husky with human teeth, which was made sometime after the first image. If you've spent enough time on the internet, there's a very high chance you've encountered at least one of these two images before, even if you weren't into internet horror. While both of the smile.dog images technically predated, they were mostly made popular by being the accompanying images for a creepypasta by the same name. But similar to what happened to the Jeff the Killer image, the smile.dog images kind of began to lead lives of their own at one point, especially the original version. In fact, it's very likely that at this point, the majority of the people who've seen it over the years have absolutely no clue what its origins are or any of the lore surrounding it. Now, if you've read the title of this video, you might be wondering how I could possibly call smile.dog the most underrated creepypasta in history if so many people are familiar with these images. Well, that's because even though I still see the smile.dog images pop up from time to time, even to this very day, rarely do I see or hear anyone still talk about the original creepypasta or the lore surrounding these images, which I think is an absolute shame because, and I'm about to drop a very hot and possibly even controversial take here, so brace yourselves, I personally believe that, at least objectively speaking, smile.dog is the best creepypasta ever written. Now, before you grab your pitchforks and start writing angry comments, please hear me out first. I believe that if you take what a creepypasta is in its most base form, which according to Wikipedia is a horror-related legend which has been shared around the internet, smile.dog, better than any other creepypasta, fits this description perfectly. Allow me to explain. As many of you likely already know, the term creepypasta comes from the term copypasta, which in turn is derived from the term copy and paste. A copypasta is basically just the exact same story or other bit of text that gets posted around the internet over and over again on various message boards and social media platforms and the like. Hence why it's derived from the term copy and paste. It's usually done ironically and as a bit of a meme. My personal favorite copypasta is the one where people would just post the B-movie script in its entirety on completely unrelated things for absolutely no reason whatsoever, and it would just confuse the hell out of every person who wasn't in on the joke.
You like jazz?
It was actually just kind of stupid looking back on it now, but I mean, you gotta admit, at the same time, that's pretty funny. Another very famous one you might have seen before is the Navy SEAL copypasta, which is a short rant by some guy who claims to be a top-ranking Navy SEAL sniper in the US Army with over 300 confirmed kills, and how he will make it his personal mission to hunt you down for shit-talking him online. People would most often use this as a reply whenever someone disagreed with them or said something they didn't like or whatever, and would usually result in the person being replied to getting made fun of by other people whenever they took it seriously and didn't know it was a joke. This one was also very popular in YouTube comments back in the day, so you might have seen it there before. But anyway, to get back on topic, creepypastas originally were just copypastas, except, well, creepy, and generally not used as ironically. They're horror stories that are supposed to be shared around on forums and other message boards to try and catch unsuspecting readers off guard and hopefully convince some of them that they were real. They were basically the internet's equivalent of campfire stories like Bloody Mary or the Boogeyman. Stories about urban myths and legends like Bigfoot or the Loch Ness Monster. Stories that were once told by some random guy in a bar somewhere that started to lead a life of their own. Only in the case of creepypastas, instead of some random guy in a bar, it's an anonymous person on a message board. They're supposed to be stories that are never able to be proven, yet never really able to be disproven either. Which is why at the end of a well-crafted creepypasta, you're not supposed to say to yourself, nah, this is clearly made up. But you're supposed to say, nah, this is clearly made up, right? Now, as time went on, creepypastas kind of became a collective term for pretty much any and all creepy stories on the internet, and with websites like creepypasta.com and the Creepypasta wiki getting created around the late 2000s, this way of sharing these stories around on message boards, anonymously and shrouded in mystery, kind of became a thing of the past, as people could now just post their stories on these websites for anyone to read, and more often than not, the name of the author would be proudly displayed at the bottom, pretty much saying, yup, yeah, I wrote this, I made this up. And while there isn't necessarily anything wrong with the creator claiming credit for their work, it did cause creepypastas to kind of lose this urban myth or urban legend aspect that they once had, because it was now no longer up to the reader's interpretation to decide for themselves whether or not they thought the story was real, as the author's name at the end of it would instantly let you know that it wasn't. smile.dog, however, did something different from all the other creepypastas that came before it, and that's that it fully took advantage of the way creepypastas were originally meant to be shared around. See, most creepypastas are written like any other story, and that you, the reader, are simply just that, a reader. You're not a part of the world that the story takes place in, and because of that, you never really feel like you're the one that's directly in any sort of danger. Sure, the characters in the story might be, and it might creep you out a bit, but you're not a part of their world. You're just an observer of sorts. But smile.dog does something incredibly clever, and that's that it takes what a creepypasta is at its core, a horror-related legend that gets shared around the internet, and directly makes that an integral part of the story itself. And by doing so, it makes you, as the reader, a part of its story as well, since by reading it, you are now directly in danger from the threat that's presented within. Unless, of course, you do the very thing that you're supposed to do with the creepypasta and share it around. Let's actually go over the creepypasta itself, so I can explain what I'm talking about. The story is written from the perspective of someone known only as Mr. L, an amateur writer who is doing research for a story. He has an interview planned with a woman called Mary E, an alleged victim of an online phenomenon known as the smile dog. A JPEG image that, when viewed, can have a variety of awful effects on anyone unfortunate enough to come across it. These effects can vary, but something all victims seem to have in common is that they all claim to have horrible nightmares after viewing the image. This often led to side effects such as depression, insomnia, anxiety, and in more extreme cases even death, caused by severe sleep deprivation. Due to the immense lack of credible information on the topic, the smile dog image is most commonly believed to be nothing more than an urban legend or an online hoax, only further perpetuated by the many fake smile dog images floating around online. Mary, however, is the only person who has ever openly admitted to having encountered the real smile dog image, but has never spoken publicly about it, which is why Mr. L asked her to do an interview. Mary initially agreed to this, but after having arrived at her house, Mr. L discovered that Mary had locked herself inside of her bedroom just moments before he arrived, and was now refusing to come out. After some pleading by her husband Terrence, the two of them eventually decided to give up and cancel the interview, as despite Terrence's efforts, Mary was still refusing to come out. Mr. L then spent the next few months looking for other people who might have experiences with or information to share about the smile dog, and were more willing to talk about them than Mary was. But after several months of chasing dead ends, he eventually decided to give up on his pursuit and put the mystery to rest, being no closer to the answers he was looking for than when he first started out. But then out of nowhere, almost a full year after the interview with Mary was supposed to take place, Mr. L receives an email from her in which she explains why she acted the way she did on the day of the interview. Now, up until this part of the story, smile.dog has been presented as nothing more than an urban legend, a rumor made up by a group of people on the internet. Even Mr. L, despite all of his research, didn't really think much more of it than that, due to most information on the topic being a bunch of incoherent stories and claims made by multiple unknown sources. Mary's email, however, really makes you reconsider this, and suggests that there might be more to this mystery than first meets the eye. She writes, "Dear Mr. L, I am incredibly sorry about my behavior last summer when you came to interview me. I hope you understand that it was no fault of yours, but rather my own problems that led me to act out as I did. You see, for 15 years, I have been haunted by smile.dog. It comes to me in my sleep every night. I know that sounds silly, but it's true. I do not move, I do not speak, I simply look ahead, and the only thing ahead of me is the scene from that horrible picture. I see the beckoning hand, and I see smile.dog. It talks to me. It tells me it will leave me alone if only I do as it asks. All I must do, it says, is spread the word." The week after my incident, I received in the mail an envelope with no return address. Inside was only a 3.5-inch floppy diskette, and without having to check, I knew precisely what was on it. I thought for a long time about my options. I could show it to a stranger, a coworker. I could even show it to Terrence, as much as the idea disgusted me. But what would happen then? Well, if smile.dog kept its word, I could sleep. But if it lied, what would I do? And who was to say that something worse would not come from me if I did as the creature asked? So I did nothing for 15 years, though I kept a diskette hidden amongst my things. Every night for 15 years, smile.dog has come to me in my sleep and demanded that I spread the word. And for 15 years, I have stood strong, though there have been hard times. I sincerely hope you will forgive me, Mr. L, but last summer when you contacted me and my husband about an interview, I was near my breaking point. I decided I was going to give you the floppy diskette. I did not care if smile.dog was lying or not. I just wanted it to end. You were a stranger, someone I had no connection with, and I thought I would not feel sorrow when you took the diskette as part of your research and sealed your fate. But before you arrived, I realized what I was doing, which was plotting to ruin your life, and I could not stand the thought. In fact, I still cannot. I am ashamed, Mr. L, and I hope that this warning will dissuade you from further investigation of smile.jpg, as you may in time encounter someone who will not hesitate to follow smile.dog's orders. Stop while you are still whole. Sincerely, Mary E. A couple days after having received this email, Mr. L got a call from Mary's husband, Terrence, who told him that after sending the email, Mary had taken her own life. He said that while going through her belongings, he found a floppy disk she had kept hidden from him all these years, and that he had burned it. He wept as he begged Mr. L to listen to his wife's advice and stop investigating the smile dog. Mr. L didn't really know how to respond to all of this, and his initial reaction was probably the same as that of most people reading the story. He didn't believe it. He thought they were playing some sick prank on him and were just messing with him to try and get a rise out of him. But after checking several online and newspaper obituaries, he was able to confirm that Mary was indeed deceased. But he still didn't really know what to make of it all. However, he had already given up in his investigation prior to Mary's email, as there were no more leads or reliable information to go after. So the decision of whether or not to listen to Mary's advice was already made. But then out of nowhere, Mr. L receives another email, this time from an unknown address. It has terrible grammar, and the subject line simply reads, "Smile." This is what it said. "Hello, I found your email address through a mailing list. Your profile said you are interested in smile.dog. I have saw it. It is not as bad as everyone says. I have sent it to you here. Just spreading the word. Smiley face." As promised, attached to the email was indeed a file, smile.jpg. Now what makes this creepypasta so perfect in my eyes is the ending, Mr. L's closing statement. Now allow me to read it for you. "I considered downloading it for some time. It was most likely a fake, I imagined. And even if it weren't, I was never wholly convinced of smile.jpg's peculiar powers. Mary E's account had shaken me, yes, but she was probably mentally unbalanced anyway. After all, how could a simple image do what smile.jpg was set to accomplish? What sort of creature was it that could break one's mind with only the power of the eye? And if such things were patently absurd, then why did the legend exist at all? If I downloaded the image, if I looked at it, and if Mary turned out to be correct, if Smile Dog came to me in my dreams demanding that I spread the word, what would I do? Would I live my life as Mary had, fighting against the urge to give in until I died? Or would I simply spread the word, eager to be put to rest? And if I chose the latter route, how could I do it? Whom would I burden in turn? Well, if I went through with my earlier intention to write a short article about smile.jpg, I decided I could attach it as evidence, and anyone who read the article, anyone who took interest, would be affected. And even assuming the smile.jpg attached to the email was genuine, would I be capricious enough to save myself in that manner? Could I spread the word? Then you scroll further down, and without warning, there it is, smile.jpg, with the last line of the story simply being, yes, I could. This ending is perfect. See, most creepypastas end with some kind of resolution, right? Either the main character dies, or the threat gets eliminated, or covered up in some way or whatever. But this story doesn't have a resolution. The threat of the story, or the curse if you will, is now passed on to you, the reader. And I don't care whether you're 10 or 100 years old, if you read this story in its entirety without knowing about it, and all of a sudden without warning this image gets shoved in your face at the end, your initial reaction will be, "Oh shit!" Now what's so interesting about this creepypasta in particular is that it's written in such a way where you can just copy the entire story and repost it somewhere else. Which is why at the beginning I said that at least objectively speaking, Smile Dog is the best creepypasta ever written. Because that is exactly what creepypastas originally were. Stories that could be copied and pasted and then shared around somewhere else. If you were to come across this story on a message board or a forum somewhere, you'd have no way of knowing whether you're the first or the 1000th person to see it. Did you just read the original post from Mr. L, whoever he may be, or did you come across one of the possibly infinite reposts? You simply wouldn't know. And the ending of the story leaves the reader with an interesting choice to make. You have now seen the Smile Dog. What will you do now? Will you choose to believe the story was fake and simply go on with your day? Or would you rather not take the risk and instead choose to spread the word? This story heavily reminds me of those cursed chain emails people used to send each other in the late 90s and early 2000s. You know, those, "If you're reading this, you are now cursed. Send this email to 10 of your closest friends within 24 hours or you will die in your sleep" type of mails. They kind of played with people's superstition a little bit, in that most rationally thinking people would instantly write it off as something fake, yet many people did what the email said anyway. Especially that one crazy aunt that used to send you one of these over text about every other week or so, and then said she was just doing it as a joke whenever you asked her to stop, even though she had a necklace made of healing stones and like 58 of these things hanging around her house. Get out of here, Michelle. We all know you believe that shit. You ain't fooling anyone. But people did it simply because, well, what if it was real? It won't hurt anyone to just do as the email says and send it to a few people, so why take the risk? And I think that perfectly applies to Smile Dog as well. Something else I really like about this story is that unlike most creepypastas, smile.dog originally didn't have an author credited at the end. As like I said earlier, someone coming out and claiming credit for making it up, even though I understand why, always felt like it ruined the mystery of the story to me. Now, eventually a person named Michael Lutz did come out and say that he created both the original smile.dog image and the creepypasta, though as far as I know has never really provided any proof to back up those claims other than some pretty extensive responses to questions on his Twitter. And even though I personally see no reason to doubt the guy, there is a big group of people who simply don't believe him. Even creepypasta.com, for example, still has the story credited to Anonymous. And I think that debate about whether he actually is the creator or not only adds to the overall mystery of the smile.dog. Now, same as what happened with most creepypastas, as the story began to gain popularity, people started adding their own bits of lore to it, and unfortunately most of it wasn't an improvement. For example, I believe eventually it was a pretty common thing to say that smile.dog was some kind of demon, and that after first seeing the image, your dreams would initially start out by seeing the tame smile.dog version, and then if you didn't do what it said, it would turn into the demonic version, and if after that you still didn't listen, he'd attack you and drag you to hell or something, which has always just been kind of stupid to me, but I digress. In the end, I believe smile.dog perfectly captures everything that a creepypasta should be at its core, and it is one of my personal favorites because of it. Both of the smile.dog images have always been very popular online, but over time, the popularity of the images have kind of overshadowed that of the creepypasta itself, which in my opinion is an absolute shame, as that is far from the most interesting thing about this creepypasta. For as popular as the character of smile.dog and both of the smile.dog images are online, too rarely does the original creepypasta receive the recognition that it in my opinion truly deserves, which is exactly why I believe that smile.dog is the most underrated creepypasta of all time. Hey, if you made it all the way to the end of this video, then thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, then you might enjoy some of my other videos as well, so be sure to check them out here. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you haven't already for more content like this in the future, and hopefully I will see you guys in a future video. But for now, I'm out. Later, people.